Yeah, this is what we do on a Tuesday night. We talk Florida State football each and every week with these two. Of course, it wouldn't be a show without Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day, and of course, especially Jason Parker, Mr. Perfect of NBC6. All he can do is give us a Joey Bosa.
I was going with the Michael Jordan, but all right.
Michael Jordan. Yeah, I guess he would be a little bit more famous and more original with it. Circa 1992 against Portland in the NBA Finals, correct?
Somebody's watched The Last Dance.
Well, somebody's watched NBA history. I think
I've been through it.
Somebody's watched.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was through it.
Let's be honest. You work for the Worldwide Leader. You're watching The Last Dance every Sunday night. Let's be honest. Okay?
I completely missed episodes 3 and 4. And then my son and I were watching 5 and 6, and he was not very uninterested, but certainly he's a big LeBron guy. He will fight you to the hilt on the Jordan versus LeBron, who's the GOAT.
I will say I always disliked Jordan. I was rooted against the Bulls, except when they played Utah. That was the only time I really rooted for the Bulls. But I've gained a newfound respect. I still think LeBron's a better all-around player, but I've gained a little bit more respect for Jordan in watching that.
Is one of your exes live in Utah? Is that why?
No, just they're a little bit. It's Utah.
I didn't know. For me, watching the Last Dance documentary, it's like a learning lesson for me because obviously I never got to see it happen. So learning the ins and outs and all the backstories of everything is freaking awesome. I enjoy it. And excuse the hair tonight. I just took a shower, so we don't know where it could be going. We're not putting on a hat. We don't care what happens.
Seriously.
We're in quarantine week 8.
You're not grounded anymore. We're still grounded here in South Florida. You're freer up there. You can move around. You can go get a haircut, can't you?
Kind of. I need a hat like you. Maybe I should put one on.
This week's minor league hat in the quarantine is the Montgomery Biscuits, the minor league team for the Tampa Bay Rays. It's this week's minor league.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that. I didn't know if that was a Steelers hat and you're hiding it because you're a secret Steelers fan. Okay, I was making sure. Looks like hangover hair. This isn't hangover hair.
Jew fro going on underneath there.
My guess was going to be Washington Redskins.
What's that?
Oh.
My guess was going to be the Redskins.
Okay. Washington offensive team name.
Look at this.
And the Metro Legend, James Coleman.
There's Coleman.
Big game, James Coleman showing up to talk some football.
Deer in the headlights. James, how you doing this week, buddy?
Can you hear us?
I'm good. It's been
might be buffering.
James, blink once if you can hear us.
James, jump out. Come right back in.
Interesting.
Give us the reset, James. We can't hear you. You're like cutting in and out. Jump in, come right back in. That's like the reset button. That's like the,
that's what does
unplug, plug back in, works 90% of the time.
The viewers at home are loving this right now, though we've spent the first 3.5 minutes talking about NBA basketball and trying to fix James's computer. This is the stuff that you get on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.
Yeah, this is a stellar episode we're working on right here, boys. This is top notch here. Absolutely.
In the words of Vince Lombardi, what the hell is
There you go. That's aptly put right there because man, we get blasted in the live chat when we ignore football for a couple minutes and we're working on 4 minutes right now. Big game James, how you doing tonight?
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
Doing good, man. Doing good. How about you guys?
We're doing just great.
Take the
I will speak for the other two.
living the dream?
All right, am I better now? I see you guys.
You are better.
Oh yeah.
All right, we had the router was overloaded. We had too many. I got this thing called a Nest technology, and I had like 6 people on the same Nest. So I told them they got to get off my Wi-Fi.
Get off for an hour.
Let's say kick them out, man.
Yeah, go get some fresh air for an hour. Come on back. All right. We remind everyone to bring your comments, your questions, your debate topics. Leave those in the live chat. Of course, we're talking Florida State football as we always do. And we will leave this topic to start out with Mr. 51 for 51. Isiah Walker big recruit a couple years ago, 15th rated offensive tackle in the 2020 class, actually. Man, it just seems like we've been talking Isiah Walker, especially with my Miami people, forever. I thought he was like a 19 or 18 class guy, but highly sought after, committed to the Gators, but he's out there wide open, Jason.
The joy for the jumping ship Gainesville. Yeah, Isiah Walker was a 4-star offensive tackle from Miami Norland, powerhouse school down here in South Florida. He signed with the University of Florida, and he announced that he is intending to transfer, that he is intending to look for a school without even having played it down for the Gators. And there's a report from Knowles 24/7 that FSU could possibly be in the running to get his services and whatnot. Obviously, at this point, unless he can get some drastic waiver from the NCAA, which I don't think would happen, he would take his redshirt year right away if he were to sign with Florida State or another school. I think Florida State should do whatever they can to get him. I think, as we've talked about for pretty much the last 51 weeks, the offensive line has been atrocious for the last 4 years in Tallahassee. And I feel like anything you can do will benefit. Now, the question is, why is he going to leave Florida? And he literally had, I believe they had like one spring camp session. What is it already about Florida that is getting him to leave Gainesville after just one semester? As a student at the University of Florida, as a member of the Florida Gators team. I mean, I think the school's atrocious. I think he finally came to his senses and realized how bad the place is. God bless him. He finally came to his reality. But as far as FSU, if FSU has any chance to get any offensive lineman, I would say get him. And I would say put your feelers out there, get your Miami recruiters, whether it's Ron Dugans, whoever's recruiting South Florida, get him to Tallahassee, get him to tour FSU, get him to once things are allowed, and get him to try to transfer to Tallahassee.
Yeah, and obviously you think offensive lineman, Florida State needs him, but he might be leaving an atrocious school, but he might be going to another one. The big guess right now is that he's probably going to Miami, but if Florida State and Atkins, Norvell, Dillingham can get in contact and kind of talk a little sense into him a little bit, you would probably play pretty early here in Tallahassee. I think there could be a chance there to at least compete with the 305 down there and try to land Walker. Obviously a talented guy. If something went wrong in Gainesville, and obviously Florida State does need offensive line help, but Miami also does need offensive line help. We saw it last season. We see with FSU too on their side of things. So be an interesting battle between FSU and probably Miami here in the next couple of days and weeks, trying to land a very talented offensive lineman.
James, what are your thoughts? Do you think Florida State should get him?
Florida State, yes, of course. Florida State should get him. Florida State should get any offensive lineman that's talented that they could, but it's a matter of if the young man wants to come to Florida State or not. I think he wants to get back closer to home from the house. Obviously, Gainesville is up the road, but I think just forgive me for not saying it, hesitancy or whatever. Man's a lot. We've heard this kind of the same. Weren't feeling it, and they didn't want to necessarily be there, but they actually sucked it up. But I would love enough wins and enough security in the coaching position for anybody to want to stay there. But right now, get recruits anyway. Even this 2021 class. I like Mike's message. I've heard nothing but good things about Mike's message, but the message isn't translating into recruiting. And we can't say, well, you have to build something because the one.
Oh, so the message is not translating into recruiting.
Yeah, and I think I'm just sort of touch on one thing there. I do think Miami is in the lead. I think Logan hit the nail on the head. James hit the nail on the head. Miami is in the lead. I think, though, that if Florida State can get Isiah Walker, it would be huge because, we talked about a little bit about this in the past couple of weeks. What is FSU's recruiting going to look like in South Florida? We've talked about the hotbed of talent down here in South Florida. What coaches are they going to be able to recruit? You have to get these guys from South Florida. They were able to get a couple kids from the Palm Beach area, a couple kids from South Florida, from Miami Killian, Miami Palmetto during the signing day for the 2020 class. The more guys you can get and kind of keep in this groove here in South Florida. Norland has not been a school down here that has sent a lot of kids to Tallahassee, to FSU. They tend to send kids more towards Florida, a couple of Miami, but they actually send a lot of kids to the Gators. So if Florida State can kind of steal one of those recruits from a Gator hotbed, I think that would definitely be a big win for Mike Norvell entering the 2020 season.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of competition going on. Definitely Florida range with recruiting too. Jake Slaughter, the center commit to Florida State, was just offered by the Gators just a day ago, I believe. And for right now, he's saying no, but he did grow up. He told our staff that he did grow up as a Gator fan. So that's already something to keep an eye on too. And Slaughter is starting to gain a lot of traction with teams right now, really good teams, SEC, obviously ACC. He's gaining a lot of offers. There's a lot of talent there. So another thing to keep an eye on. It's a lot of recruiting going on and competition between the three big here right now.
So I'm looking at kind of playing off something that James said about Norvell's message not necessarily translating into recruiting success right now. I don't know if James is looking at particular commits that aren't choosing Florida State. I'm looking at a national rank of 45. We all know what that means at this point of the game. There's some indication there that it's not up to standards, but there's a long way to go until the guys actually sign in December and in February, 9th ranked in the ACC right now. So are you guys concerned about those numbers right now? What do you think, Logan?
Not on my end. I'm not. There's so much time left. I do think you can only say so much. We're in an extremely weird time right now. Florida State would like to have a little momentum heading into, you're getting into late summer, obviously start of fall. You'd like to start picking up some commits, but it's very dry right now. Probably the highlight of this right now is because of friggin' Tennessee. They're getting a recruit every other hour, and it's pretty good recruits. So FSU fans are a little antsy to land some Noles. So right now it's a low ranking, of course, but it's a weird time of the year, a weird thing that we're all going through. And Florida State, what Mike Norvell is going to have to do is get a win on the board. And I think a lot of recruits are going to kind of turn their necks a little bit more because they keep on hearing good things. They're hearing good things, results on the field, hearing what probably players are talking to them, telling them what the difference is between Willie Taggart and Mike Norvell and how the way that system is working from the inside and out, and then showing it on the field on a Saturday and then going to talk to that recruit and saying, heck, yeah, I told you how we've been working and how practice is, and this is how it's going to be. Recruits are going to like that. But got to show it on the field more than anything for definitely big time recruits.
Yeah, we're definitely in a moment right now where everything's kind of getting passed. Like everything's kind of passed right now. We didn't have spring football. You can't tour campus. You can't host any recruits. You can't do anything like that. So it's kind of like, okay, we're just in that wait and see mode. And I think Logan hit the nail on the head there. If Florida State, by the end of the Clemson game, let's just say in a perfect world, we lose to Clemson, but it's competitive, and we're 4-1 after the Clemson game, that recruiting class is going to look a lot better because all of a sudden people are going to give Florida State credit. Kids are going to want to commit to Florida State. Florida State's going to be in the conversation for a lot of guys that right now they aren't even close to being in the conversation for. So it's basically the Al Davis theory. Just win. As long as you win, you're going to be fine. If Florida State is 2-3 after that Clemson game, our class is going to be pathetic. If we're 4-1, we'll be just fine.
That sounds good. And recruiting doesn't matter in May to people who don't recruit well. One of the hardest things to do is flip a recruit. Like people don't. I don't know what's. I guess this is something that we're not used to. But Florida State has never been this bad this early. Facebook has this great thing called On This Day, and if you're an FSU fan, go look at your.
Man, this is unfortunate. We don't have Big Game James at full throttle here. But you're just to let you know, James, you're cutting in and out, so we'll hang with you here. I think we lost him.
And I had a great follow-up question for James. I was going to ask him.
Man.
All right, I'll play the role of James Coleman here. So yes, Florida State's awesome.
James back. He's back with us.
All right,
Give it a
that's
go,
my
James.
fault. That's my
You're
fault
good.
for not using using my MacBook. I tried to use a Microsoft product, and I got exactly what I was asking for.
There you go.
But what I was saying is recruiting doesn't matter in May to people who don't recruit very well. We've always recruited very well during this time, even during the Willie Taggart era, even during Jimbo's downtime. We've always had recruits come on campus. We've always had an excitement, no matter how much we want to try to recreate or have revisionist history. 46 is not acceptable, and it's getting worse. I see people all the time in fifth quarter Discord chat when I'm dropping my nuggets and things like that. They're trying to make me feel like, oh, well, we're with LSU. Well, LSU popped 3. We're right next to Alabama. Who in their right mind feels like we're going to, like when Alabama wants to turn on a switch, they're going to turn on their switch? Recruiting is about developing relationships and working hard. Now, I do believe that once Mike Norvell gets an opportunity to coach and we're able to see the X's and O's, we're going good. But everybody is facing the same pandemic. Organization, relationships, and a lot more effort is what's required. And if this is what's happening, and I'm to believe all of the things that I've researched, which I do believe, and that we're being told by the numerous people who cover FSU, this is unacceptable. Even to Coach Norvell, it's unacceptable. So it's not a reason to panic, but at a certain point, you're going to go from having an opportunity to get premium recruits to having to flip and go after premium recruits, which flipping a recruit requires a tremendous amount of energy and capital that I don't think FSU has right now, unless you win 9 to 10 games. We're not flipping the guy from Coach O. I can tell you that much.
James, quick follow-up there on that one, because you're obviously the one who went through this whole recruiting process that from a first-hand basis. Talk about what a school does after, like, somebody commits, like, let's say, when you commit to Florida State. What do schools really drop out of the race, or do they still pressure you to try to get you to flip? Just go through the process for us of what it's like. As
most schools will recruit you up until the day you sign. So I mean, there's some that will fall back because they have to go to their other options. But they felt like their relationship was so much stronger during the time that they were trying to get you that they're not going to just let it go to waste. To bring up a guy that FSU fans don't believe, but Jeff Sims committed early in the process. Penn State recruited him all the way up until his senior year of football, the senior season. So, like, guys don't just drop off; they keep going until they get who it is that they want. Same thing with with Carson Beck, another kid that I had an opportunity to see a lot of things with. Carson. Florida recruited Carlson. A lot of people recruited him even though he was with Alabama. Now, certain schools do certain things different once you commit. For example, I believe Nick Saban will change this approach. But once you commit to Alabama, you might not necessarily hear from Alabama until they submit you those papers. It may be every now and then. A big part of why Carson kind of started wavering was he didn't hear from Alabama after he won the state championship and after he won Mr. Football. So he's like, well, but he's hearing from everybody else. Where staffs like what Florida State and what Florida State will have to do, and I think Mac does a really good job with not Mac. Mullen does a good job with his staff, especially the off the field one, is they communicate with guys throughout the process the entire time. So I mean, heck, even the young man we were just talking about, Walker, you think he didn't have people kind of in his ear, even though he's already signed? I'm not suggesting that anybody's cheating, but you'd be a fool or naive to believe that people don't text parents from time to time to gauge interest and temperature.
So we're on the subject of recruiting right now. That's the lifeblood of any program. Redbeard is online. Want to also acknowledge a number of other people here. New King God, Kyle Pickett, a lot of the normal cast of characters. Clemson ACC champion. Have yet to see their handle before, so we welcome you to the show. John Sarian's got a good question. We'll get to it in a second. SEC Dog and some others. Nate Kingdom as well. Okay, Redbeard, talking about the complement of the coaching staff in developing players and how that goes with recruiting. So he says, Mark and fellas, don't you think Norvell's ability to judge talent and bring in good coaches will be what makes him successful at FSU. My thought there is you can only have such a good coaching staff to raise up a 2-star level team to compete for an ACC championship. So it starts with talent. Of course, you need good coaches to develop and game plan and do all those things to develop the team and field the team. So those have to be the two most important elements, right? The talent and then the coaching ability to develop the talent and scheme up the games.
We talked about this in previous weeks, like when ESPN did their way too early top 25 and put Florida State at, I believe it was 21. And I said I didn't like that because I feel like we are not the 21st best team in college football. I feel like you need to kind of start low because we haven't earned that title. I don't think we've earned the right to be considered a top 25 team. From my personal perspective, I feel like, and this once again goes back to when we hired Willie Taggart, we hired all these coaches who came in. It was kind of like we hired all this great staff, we hired all these great guys, but it was kind of like we were in that mindset if we were just, I'm trying to find the politically correct word, but I always say it was kind of like we're like the end of the Jimbo Fisher era was an abusive relationship in a way. We were just kind of like we were hurt. We were, we wanted a new generation, a new coaching search. So I'm kind of like the guys. I think we have a good coaching staff, guys like Kenny Dillingham, the other assistants around there. But I'm kind of I want to see how it goes on the field. I want to see that West Virginia game. I want to see that first game against Boise State. I want to see. I'm being honest. I don't think we're going to beat Clemson, but I want to see us be competitive against Clemson. That's what I want to see. So all this preseason talk right now, all this, let's I feel like there's a lot of guys who want to let's praise Mike Norvell because he's not Willie Taggart who went 9-12. But at the same point, we wanted to praise Willie Taggart because he wasn't Jimbo Fisher who was 5-6 before he abandoned ship with a game to go in the 2017 regular season. So that's why I'm kind of like, let me see those first couple games. Logan, you like that take?
I know. I saw that take there on Jimbo. I knew you always got to have one every week, and you're going to have one next week too.
For the one-year anniversary of MarkRogersTV, FSU Live.
That's
Jason apparently would have an issue with winning the ACC, going to college football playoffs, winning a national championship, and winning 80% of his games. He doesn't like that.
Don't start it. It's going to start up if you don't do it.
17. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
My take on this, just real quick. I do think, talking about Redbeard's comment about the staff as a whole, I do think it's a smart idea from what Norvell has done. And you can see as the staff that he's put around him, they're guys that he's pretty much worked with before. He's had some kind of connection with them at some point in stopping. And he's able to bring in some pretty talented coaches too. They're good at developing. If you look at the NFL draft too, you see all the stars and all that kind of crap. But man, it's loaded with 3 stars. It's loaded with 4 stars. You got a little bit of 5 stars in there, but you've got loads and loads of 3 stars. So developing is a huge thing in college. That's something that's been lacking in Tallahassee for a very long time. But I do think the experience that Norvell has had with these coaches previously, they want to come coach under Mike Norvell, and I think that says a lot. And I think that will help a lot more than maybe Willie Taggart's staff, because you have guys coming from different spots before that hadn't worked under Willie Taggart. So I think you'll see a smoother organization from the internal side too. And hopefully it will turn into something on the field, because there's a lot of developmental things that needs to happen. And I think it's starting right now with conditioning, also lifting. It seems like they're on a strict schedule, and it seems like the players are really, 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 really buying into Coach Storms. I mean, there's a tweet almost every week of a player that's really happy about the progress that they're seeing with their bodies. And I think that's solid, and that's a good start for players really buying into Mike Norvell and his staff, not just Norvell, but his staff that he brought with him to train these guys.
There's that key word again, buy-in. That word that winners don't really need to use. Winners are bought in because winners want to go to the NFL, which is something that they had, and the only way you can go to the NFL is to buy in or listen to what the guys are doing. It's similar to a military strategy. It doesn't matter if the general advises you to storm a hill, and that's a dumb call. That it's almost a kamikaze type mission. If you don't do what he's instructed you to do, you will die. If you do what he's instructed for you to do, your chances of living and survival are a lot higher. So really, it's at this point, if the players still need to be told to buy in, Norvell just needs to get rid of them. You got to recruit guys who want to be alpha males, who want to be dogs. And that's something that has been lost, not just under Taggart. It started with Jimbo. And I'm not here to bash him about that, but that's what happens with the cultures. Cultures get lost. And yes, he is a great developer of talent. That is a phenomenal skill that he has. That is a phenomenal skill and a luxury to be able to have at Memphis. Not in the big boy schools.
Even at a place like Florida State, that's a roughly top 10 all-time school in football.
Let me tell you this.
I got a question for you, James.
Can I say this one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead on that, because I want to get all of your take on this question.
When you think of the legends at Florida State that you can remember in the back of your head, how many of them were 3 stars? You can't think of it. You can't think of many. Now, the second highest drafted guy was a walk-on, but for the most part, Peter Work, highly recruited. Most of the guys highly recruited. It's great to develop guys. I was one of those developmental guys that reached out. Those are good to add depth and quality. But you don't come. Florida State is a brand name. It's not Memphis. It's not hard. The facilities may not be up to par with Bama, but you know what? There's some damn good facilities. And you've got paperwork that shows in the next few years you're going to build it. It's not it's not a time to sell, wait and see what we're going to do. No, this is what we're going to do. Or, unfortunate, if you don't get a good 21 class, you don't get a good 22 class, guess what's going to happen? LSU is coming. And that schedule ain't the schedule that we have coming up right now. And it ain't the schedule that's next year. And then after that, you got Notre Dame added to it. And then after that, you got more. The schedule gets harder, and it's not a cupcake schedule. And if you can rely on your development, and you need to bring in the top guys, which I believe he will, but I can understand why fans are a little perturbed right
now. The problem is, I want to say one thing real quick, Mark. The problem is, and you had one of the commenters who asked the question, if there's all these great recruits, why are the teams struggling in the state of Florida? Because it's a simple fact. It's not like in the 90s, and I'm going to say this for a second. Bobby Bowden at FSU was great. You know, Howard Schnellenberger at the University of Miami, when he was starting UM and getting them back to normal, was great at it. And to somewhat an extent, I'll even give Steve Spurrier credit at the University of Florida. They sold the school. Hey, you're going to get a chance to play great football. You're going to get a chance to do the best possible chance to play pro football. But you're also going to get your degree from Florida State, from UM, from Florida. There were also at the highest point, I believe there was 100 schools in the FBS. Now there's 30 more schools. There's 130 right now in the FBS entering this coming season. So you're recruiting against more schools, and there's a lot of kids from all over the country who just want to go to schools where they're going to be on TV. My prime example is Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, being from down here in South Florida, wanted to go to Florida State. He wanted to play at Florida State. He ended up going to a directional Michigan school, not because he wanted to win championships, but because he knew he was going to be on TV every Tuesday night and Wednesday night in November. And it was about getting pub, getting the catches on ESPN and on Fox Sports and NBC and ABC and CBS, getting on TV as much as possible and getting out there. So you've got kids who used to go to Florida State, Florida, Miami because you were from the state of Florida who are leaving. That's what the biggest problem is right now at this point, is that there's almost that loyalty to Florida State and to Miami and to Florida that doesn't exist anymore.
Man, it's been a while. Forget what I was going to say. Oh, a couple things come to mind. So number one would be, to James' point, is that we were talking recruiting rankings. And my thought process was on this other live stream was I was trying to get a gauge on, we know that the schools that are recruiting at the elite level, we could name off the 4 or 5 schools. That's about all there is. Then there's another tier right there that's like a Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan. They're always ranked about 8 to 12, something in that range. But what is the actual, in a 20 to 25 player recruiting class, what is the difference between those two levels? Is it like 3 to 4 4 stars? What is it? And we kind of went through the metrics to try to figure that out. And what we determined in grabbing Alabama and Ohio State's last recruiting classes is if you take Alabama, they got 21 out of 24 players are 4 and 5 stars. They got 3 3-stars. The other 21 to 20 out of 24 are blue chippers. Ohio State is almost the same exact thing. The 5 3-stars they have are all from Ohio. So I'm guessing they want to keep that connection in Ohio. That's going to fill out the roster. They're 3-stars. That's still a really good player, typically. And that's what a school like Florida State that's trying to get back to that level is dealing with. My other question, starting with James, is that you mentioned selling players on the ticket to the NFL. How many players on a team like Florida State? Again, we're talking about a program that's down, but still, has the brand and all of that. How many of those kids on that roster, out of the 85 scholarship players, legitimately think they can play in the league?
I can tell you what it used to be like. You recruit 25 guys think they can go to the NFL. Legitimately, you'll probably see 10 in a class, and that's really good. That doesn't mean there's 10 that year. You have a guy that will redshirt. You have a guy that will leave early. It's spread out, but you'll see guys go. And it's down years. There's some years where you'll have a bigger senior or graduating class or leaving class that leaves. There's some years where you'll have a small one. In particular, this year right here wasn't as big, and it still sucks that you only have one drafted. But when you look at Big Marv coming back, you look at Durden, who probably would have been a late draft pick if he would have left, but possible draft pick. He's coming back. Cooper, Tamarind Terry, Hamza Nazarene, however you say his name. Those are all guys right now that we can say if the season didn't start or didn't play, those are guys that will probably get drafted or get a look or at least go to the combine next year. And that's not including Asante Samuels and a few others. But it starts with what you said, though, Mark. Who thinks they can go to the NFL? And that's the mindset when you see them play. Forget coaching. Let's say all coaches were the same. Watching Florida State, and this could be for Jason and Logan, who from Florida State did you see just had that swagger that I'm going to go to the league?
Jalen.
Cam,
besides Cam, yeah. I'm talking about like this team, this last year's team.
Cam
is the only one.
Cam Akers was the only one. Cam Akers was the only one that you knew from that Louisiana Monroe game was going to make it to the NFL. After the Louisiana Monroe game, I said this was going to be his final season in Tallahassee. He was just on a different level.
Can I give you the Rosetta Stone of football? I don't know if anybody's ever done this for you, Mark, but this is how you can. I'm going to help you understand. Anybody listening right now, I'm going to help you understand how easy football is. Dominate the guy in front of you. That's football. Football 101. If you whoop the person in front of you's ass, guess what's going to happen? You have a high likelihood of having success, no matter what the play call is. No matter you could be in a goal line defense against a spread. If you dominate the person in front of you, you have a highly likelihood of having success. Doesn't mean it's a great percentage. Doesn't mean it's the right coverage. But the thing is if you take that offensive lineman and you put their shoulder pads into their esophagus and you throw them back on the quarterback, bad things typically happen for the offense. Vice versa. Offensive line, if you put your hands on the inside of the interior lineman's shoulder pads, you can take them anywhere you want to go. DB, if you beat the wide receiver, you jam them, or redirect them, you won. Wide receiver, if you run your route full speed, you're going to win. That's the mentality of a guy who wants to go to the NFL, and we haven't had that. We don't have that.
And to me, the guy after Cam Akers that showed that the most that I saw down the stretch was Tamarind Terry, who showed flashes of being a guy that wanted to dominate and had that kind of ability.
And that's the knock on him right now. That's the knock on his NFL grade. Is how, and again, it could be coaching. I'll give him that. I watched the Florida game, and it was terrible. It was crazy. And I only watched it because some Florida fans did make C.J. Henderson, how they try to describe it, made C.J. look stupid, but it wasn't his fault. He did do what he did. The safety bit. But man, he ran a skinny post concept. Oh, boom! It was beautiful. Caught it. The only thing that sucked is he got ran down by C.J. Henderson. Then they ran it again. We scored a touchdown. Then we never saw it again. But again, Kes McCorvey, one of the greatest wide receivers in Florida State history, said, "Make every route look like a go route, and the DB won't know what to do." And he doesn't make every route look like that.
Good stuff every Tuesday night with these guys. Big game, James Coleman, fifth quarter college football. Logan Robinson, Knoll game day. And, of course, the perfect one, Jason Parker, 51 for 51, NBC 6. We talked Isiah Walker, so if you missed that conversation, you, of course, allow the video to post, and you go back and you rewatch what you missed. We talked about recruiting. Recruiting is the lifeblood of every program, and that's what it's going to take to get this program back. And right now they're 45th in the rankings and 9th in the ACC. We'll see what that looks like come December. That's when it really matters.
Now, Mark, before we continue real quick, I just want to give you guys a heads up here. Now, you have one more week to go before our 1-year anniversary here of FSU Live with MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. So you have one more week to go out and buy me my 1-year perfect gift. Logan, I know what I want from you. I want the best ever promotion of hitting the like button. But I want it to be the best thing ever.
The best one?
Best one ever.
Right now?
Putting the pressure on.
Step up to the plate, son. Be a child's high Timberwolf. Come on.
If I had a beer, I'd chug a beer, but that right now shouldn't be really that impressive being the senior. So, how many likes are we at? We're at 33 likes, and we have 64 watch. That's pathetic. So, can we please get it to 50 likes before the show's over? We need to make Jason happy. It seems like he's gonna be ticked off. His hat's backwards. He's hiding the Steelers logo on the other end of it. Let's make sure we hit the like button so then this gets out to more FSU fans that are watching and listening and join Mark Rogers' production. He does a lot of videos every friggin' week. But yeah, it's freaking awesome that Mark brings us on here to talk some Noles, and it'd really help a lot if you hit that like button. Hit it now, or Jason won't be on next week. If we don't get the 50 likes, Jason won't be on the show next week.
Okay, first
How
of all,
about that? Did that help?
I would encourage people not to hit the like button, but okay, Logan, you really everything on that one. But speaking of, Logan actually did bring up a good point. MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football, does everything for college football, including his series on realigning college football's conferences. Now, Mark Rogers, you are going to be under the spotlight.
Okay.
We're going to do a new segment here called Defend Yourself. You did a video, which is very good. You should watch all of them on Mark's YouTube channel, where you realigned the ACC and you kicked out 4 teams and brought in 2 teams that have a Sunshine State flavor. So explain your theory behind your realignment of the ACC.
So, of course, I didn't realign the ACC in a vacuum. I had to look at the entire country, and my aim was football only. This is all that matters. I don't care about any other sport. I don't care about money. I don't care about academics. I care about nothing but football and the competition on the field, traditions, geography that makes sense, and keeping rivalries intact. So therefore, I redesigned college football as it pertains to the ACC, and I'm releasing those videos each and every day. So I believe the ACC was released this morning. So what I've done is I've taken out Louisville, Pitt, Boston College, and Syracuse. They don't belong in the ACC. Get them out. I'm going to a 12-team ACC, as I did in the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody has 12 teams. And I've brought in, let's somewhat understand that I cut this video in 2017. South Florida and Central Florida. Those were my 2 additions to the ACC. There you go.
Okay. On paper, it's not the worst. I'm gonna break this down. Now, you had the Atlantic Division becoming Florida State, Miami, UCF, USF, Wake Forest, and Georgia Tech. And then you had the Coastal Division being Clemson, North Carolina State, Duke, Virginia, and Virginia Tech.
Well done, Jason. I haven't looked at this video in 3 years, so you're reminding me of what I put together then. Very good. Okay.
Copious notes here. So here's my question to you. It's a 2-part question. First of all, why UCF and USF? Why bring them in? That's part number 1. And you can answer them in whichever order you want to. Number 2, why are you kicking out all the Big East schools? except for Miami.
Again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a situation in which we've got good competitive football on the field. We're keeping geographical common sense in play. So there is no West Virginia in the Big 12. That's one example. And the ACC has historically been a Atlantic Southern region conference that does not include Boston College. Louisville's practically in the Midwest or in the South Midwest. Pitt is practically in the Midwest or the Northeast, some corridor close to that. It just geographically bringing in those schools to me doesn't make any sense. They don't really add that much to the conference, and I'm sizing the conferences down to 12. Central Florida, I don't think is much that I need to defend there. South Florida's program was in much better shape 3 years ago. When you start to grab the group of 5 and you go past Boise State, there's nothing that's really been a sure thing for quite some time. UCF would be the most recent example. So I've added them in South Florida, which I would think would be able to play on par with something close to what we've seen out of Georgia Tech. They actually beat Georgia Tech in the last 2 years.
I don't mind what you did here. Just looking over it real quick, I think, and we talked about this earlier a couple of weeks ago when I said to bring Notre Dame in. I think the ACC should require Notre Dame to either join or get out altogether. I think it's bogus that they are in every other sport but football. And I would kick out Louisville. I'd send Louisville to the Big 12. Let them go. You have a close geographical with West Virginia, Iowa State, schools like that. So I'd let them go. It's not the worst ever. I do think, though, you can't just look at it as just college football. So I think you have to keep Syracuse in. I think, Syracuse is a big enough school, both in the Northeast. It's got the basketball power to it. They're getting better in football. I think they're a decent part of the conference. I don't mind Boston College. It was a nice visit in 2005. We were able to go cover their inaugural ACC game when they played Florida State for their first game. I think it's fine. I think Louisville and Pitt, I wouldn't mind seeing them leave. If you want to bring UCF and USF in, it's not the end of the world. I'm not totally upset with what you did.
Yeah, again, I run a football channel. That's all I care about. Don't care about the other sports. And it's not a realistic. I state at some point during these videos, I'm not like looking at some worldview and doing all sorts of digging about academic requirements. I know the Big Ten in particular has academic requirements that at the time of their expansion, they had to kind of wrinkle the rules to get Nebraska in, and they wouldn't consider West Virginia academically. I don't care about that. And it's to get into all that would just take volumes of work. I'm focused on football, competitiveness on the field, tradition, regional rivalries, geography that makes sense. And to me, again, Louisville, Boston College, Pitt don't make sense. Syracuse in the ACC in a league that includes Florida State, they're pretty much a half a country away.
Syracuse got kicked out of the ACC after them leaving the Big East, basically eliminated the Big East Basketball Conference, the original incarnation of the Big East Basketball Conference. I think the Big East would come down to them. They would come down to Connecticut.
And if you keep track of this series, Jason, you're going to see a new conference emerge. So hang on to some of those schools that I've discarded.
You could make a legitimate argument that you could make a Sunshine State Conference. Think about it. Florida State, Florida, Miami, UCF, USF, FAMU, Bethune, FAU, FIU, West Florida won the Division II National Championship. It would be a decent.
That was actually one of the arguments. If like the state of Florida was going to play football no matter what. But if let's say the ACC and the SEC didn't fully get operational, or others, they were going to make like a Sunshine State Conference. There was going to be football play, which would have been kind of fun. It would have had some games that people like. I think everybody should hear the Marching 100 at least once in their lifetime. And I think it's the Marching Wildcats. They're very good bands. West Florida has a quarterback who I believe originally went to Southern Illinois, but he was a freshman this year. My partner, Denny Thompson, trains him, and he's very fun to be around. It would have been some really good games. I believe. But I just can't wait. I'm glad everything is pointing in the direction for us to have football in the fall.
Logan, for $5, name West Florida's mascot.
West Florida's mascot?
Their mascot.
Isn't it a Argonaut? They're not Argonauts. No, I don't know what they are. What? Some freaking horse. I don't know. A plane.
You're
I
going
don't know.
planes?
I'm going Pensacola. I'm thinking West Florida, Pensacola Air Base there. I don't. A bison. I don't know.
Always go with your first instinct.
You were right the first time. It was the Argonauts. Jesus.
Was that right? See, well, why are we going? I mean, that's pretty good.
No, you don't get the $5 for that. You second guess.
That's funny because one of my friends I haven't talked to in a few years randomly called me today, and he goes to West Florida. So that was pretty. It's weird how that kind of aligns there. I never wanted to go to West Florida though.
We got all sorts of kind of stuff we could talk about, but I just think they're bigger subjects. Considering we don't have a whole lot of time, we could talk the one that got away. So James, keep this one on the back burner for future shows. The one that got away, meaning the recruit, and of course you can give us a whole list if you want to of guys that you thought were going to be Noles, and for sure they were locked and loaded, and then something happened late in the recruiting process and they slipped away. That really hurt.
Anytime or just recently?
Anytime.
Oh, it's two. Both of them wide receivers. Whitney Lewis from out of Southern California was Lorenzo Booker's best friend. Was like a 5-star wide receiver. And Julio Jones. Those are two guys that I know a lot of people thought we were going to get.
Julio Jones was one that I will admit. I thought he was coming to Tallahassee, and he ended up at the last minute going to Alabama. I'm going to keep mine a little bit in the last 5 years with my two, and they're both the positions that we've talked about were definitely of me. One guy was from down here, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. He was from Coconut Creek, just up the road from me here in Broward County. And leading up to signing day, it looked like, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, those were pretty much the big three. And towards the end, it looked like it was going to be Alabama or Florida State. I legitimately, going into signing day, thought he was going to go to Florida State. Obviously, he ends up going to Alabama. Obviously, it turned out pretty well for him. He got a national title ring during his time with the Crimson Tide, so it worked out well for him. But I think if he had been in there, you put him in that wide receiver room with the way Tamari and Terry showed up towards the end of 2019, I think that group would have definitely been a much better group to be around. The other guy is at the linebacker position from the Jacksonville area, who's now a new Jacksonville Jaguar, Shaq Quarterman, who went to the University of Miami. We've talked about the linebacker position. We talked about how arguably the most talented, if you're just going with talent, not as far as the best football player, was Dontavius Jackson, as far as physical size and whatnot. Shaq Quarterman, and once again, that's a guy who I don't know how much Florida State was into him, but Florida State should have gotten him.
Unfortunately, him, a young man before that named Dylan Bates, and a couple of they just relationships win. Hopefully, we can look in our past and see where we haven't done that. But I do know that were about 3 or 4 notable alumni who were very close to that to Shaq that could have probably made that happen if we wanted to.
Oh yeah, and that's something we've talked about. If Shaq Quarterman had gone to Florida State instead of Miami, you saw what he did at UM. He was arguably at times their best athlete during the 2019. Definitely was their best leader. And I've interviewed him multiple times. Wonderful gentleman, great guy, smart individual. I think he's going to be a success for the Jaguars. I hope he's a success for the Jaguars. He's a guy who, if he had been playing for Florida State, I'm not saying Florida State would have been a 10, 11 win team, but Florida State definitely would have gotten a couple more victories over the last 3 seasons had Shaq Quarterman come into Tallahassee.
I need to do more homework on this. One that I think there wasn't a lot of, a little bit. I talked with them personally. Ronnie Harrison could have been in the same backfield as Derwin. I think it was the same class. What do you have anything on that, James?
Yeah, that's a little bro.
He liked Pruitt from what he told me.
It came down to this. So,
but Pruitt left, and he was like, "I'm out." Kinda.
Ronnie or Derwin James? They were taking one. Which one are you taking?
I'm gonna take Derwin.
It worked out. The NFL did the exact same thing. It worked out for both of them. I remember his brother was very upset that Florida State didn't offer him, but we got to understand. One, let me let people understand. Ronnie Harrison went to a football powerhouse in Tallahassee that produces not only great athletes, great academics, great men, just all over the place.
Hold on.
Florida State
James.
University Developmental Research School.
That we have to do in full disclosure here, James.
Hold up.
James,
Yes.
where did you graduate from high school?
The Florida State Developmental Research High School.
Okay.
But he was a North Carolina commit, and he was a guy who really exploded like after that junior, and then that spring development combine camp season. And I remember he went to the Jimbo Fisher camp, that a series of tweets was talked about where there was a lot of competition going when camps were a little bit different during that time. And he just went to the place that was the best fit for him, and it worked out. I believe personally, you take both, but they kind of had them both kind of hemmed into the same position. So what would end up happening, he wouldn't be in the NFL right now, because I got news for you. Derwin was a higher rated recruit. He was the guy who committed earlier, and he was going to be there. And I think Nick Saban did a great job coming in and doing what he had to do to be able to get Ronnie. And I think I was actually talking about Ronnie on a Jaguars podcast earlier today. That safety is what Saban liked, but when you look at like the next year, Saban ended up getting somebody different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now Derwin and Ronnie Harrison probably would have been a little bit too much. But I just thought it was always interesting from what I was told, what he told me is that Pruitt and him, he really liked Pruitt, but once Pruitt's gone, and that there wasn't really much more play there in Tallahassee. But that would have been a nasty secondary. Obviously, you had Jalen before, but that would have been.
When you're in doubt, you always recruit from FSU High School. I mean, it's the best school beyond county.
There's a few more DBs coming out of Tallahassee too.
Relationships matter. You gotta we can make all the excuses in the world, and that doesn't mean you dislike somebody. But in your own backyard, you have 3 to 5. You have 3 to 5, maybe more. You guys would be probably a little bit more than I. Top 300 players that you could just roll out of bed and go recruit. Some of them are being trained by an alumni that's from that area. So I mean, like again, to me, I think FSU's lack of recruiting, even under Jimbo, it comes down to the lack of developing relationships. You have a notable alumni that coaches in every hotbed, probably at every school, not just a fan, an alumni. You can't go see a recruit. That's illegal during downtimes. But you can always go see alumni. That's free game. Just letting you know. So if you just so happen to be at Florida High when somebody else is at Florida High, I mean, was it a bump rule? Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah.
So, but just a free game.
Well, and we've said this before. I think towards the end of the 2000, around the time when you went in there, James, Florida State went from recruiting Florida first to recruiting more of a nation. You get Lorenzo Booker from out in California, Chris Ricks from California, Travis Johnson from out in California. You get these guys from all over the country, and you kind of forget your home area. When Jimbo, in the beginning of the Jimbo Fisher era, it was, hey, we're going to recruit South Florida. We're going to recruit North Florida. We're going to recruit South Georgia. We're going to recruit, like you said, the area where you roll out of bed, drive an hour, and just get recruits the whole time. And I feel like towards the end of Jimbo Fisher's time, he sort of stepped away, went a little bit more national, and really sort of did that as well. Like, he didn't focus so much on the state of Florida. If you recruit the state of Florida, if you stay in the Sunshine State, you should have arguably a top 15 class every single year. That should be FSU's number one goal. 80% of it should be recruiting the state of Florida, and then get the other 20% you can from the rest of the country. If you do that, you'll be fine. Give me a 3-star from Fort Lauderdale, from Orlando, from Miami, over the 5-star from Kansas, the 5-star from, I'm going to say it, from Maryland, from Idaho. Yeah, I said it, Mark. I know there's been no 5 stars from Idaho, but I'm going to say it again.
I thought you were pushing it with Kansas, then you went to Idaho.
Because that was
next. You're going to go to Alaska.
That was a throwback to like show 26 when you launched a full scale IT investigation into that statement.
What about, can we talk like for the next segment next week? What about the ones that were there but got away still, like Malik Henry, even Kane Dobb, who was a big one that came in and was gone. I think that's a pretty interesting covers.
That was just a few years ago.
I think those are pretty good conversations there.
There's a certain player from when James was on the team who I could rip on real quick. Well, I think was a big letdown. We'll save that for next week.
Okay. So back in show 26, what did I say, Jason, that so offended you?
I said something about a 5-star from Idaho. You launched a full scale. There's never been a 5-star from Idaho. I found a couple.
Oh, yeah.
5-star.
Yes. I hit you with the facts, and that was not a good thing to do.
Well, first time for everything.
See, and I think for our next week is the 1 year episode. So when are you going to allow us to do a phone call show? Because obviously we gave a hint to it, and it was blowing up, and people just kept on calling, and we didn't even put the number up there.
We don't need George from Oregon calling, who's all of a sudden a Gator fan, even though you live in Oregon. Who I believe that's the George that wrote the comment about he's upset that Florida hasn't won national titles in the last few years. Oh, I'm sorry, when they were 4-8 2 of the last 6 seasons. I'm sorry. Apologize.
I thought it was hilarious. To
commemorate 1 year on the air with you guys, we will take phone calls next week.
Oh, Jesus.
We will take phone calls next week. We can always limit it, Jason. Let's understand what we can do here. We can limit it to a phone call, and we can say, hey, if it gets out of hand, boom. I take calls all the time. This is what I do, Jason.
Mike just dropped a cat daddy in the chat.
So here we go. Here we go. We got to take care of some business here. So we got to understand, everyone, that we appreciate you jumping in the live chat. I apologize for anyone I didn't get to, but yeah, we need to recognize some people. And also we need to bask between you three, James, Jason, and Logan. This is all you. This has nothing to do with me. Hemi Knoll for life here. Best show on YouTube, period. That's because of these three right here. I just sit here. I just get us on the air, and I just cut the cord at the end is basically all I do.
I mean, you said it. I didn't say it. You said that.
But I will also pick up the super chats here. So those are good. So we got Wayne. Thank you so much. He says Thibodeau was a huge fish that got away. Much love, guys, and rest in peace, Coach Shula. So we want to get maybe a quick comment from everyone regarding, I know that there's little connection, but it is within the Sunshine State, arguably the greatest of all time, Don Shula, passing away at the age of 90 yesterday. And before we get Jason to lead that off, because I know he's eagerly waiting to give his eulogy there, we've got Mike Williams chiming in with the nice super chat contribution. Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate it. You're always here supporting us, so thank you so much for that. Yes, Don Shula, 347 wins, 6 Super Bowls, 2 wins, and of course the perfect season of 1972. Jason. Yeah,
it's been a sad last 24 or 36 hours down here in South Florida. And I'll admit I cried when after doing the work, putting the story up, getting once we confirmed with the Dolphins and whatnot, and getting the information out there. I'll admit I cried. Growing up down here, growing up as a Dolphins fan, it's weird for me growing up as a Dolphins fan, but as the son of FSU alumni, Bobby Bowden and Bobby Bowden and Don Shula were the two icons. They were the two guys you grew up rooting for, and both of them could do no wrong. And later on, being able to interview Shula numerous times for different stations I've worked for down here, he is without a doubt was one of the nicest individuals in the entire world. He was one of the sweetest men, great interview, all the stuff you hear, everything you've heard from ESPN reporters, NFL Network reporters from the Miami Herald, South Florida Sun Sentinel, everyone who's covered it, they've been telling 100% the truth. He was a demanding coach, but he was one of the nicest, sweetest individuals in the world. For me, it was personal because growing up, my grandfather was an immigrant and learned to love football. He became a Hurricanes fan because he works as an usher for games in the Orange Bowl. he was a diehard Miami Dolphins fan and thought Don Shula walked on water. And there's part of me that was a little bit happy that he has already passed on years ago, because he would have been heartbroken. I think there's a lot of people down here who are saddened at Don Shula's passing. 90 years, he lived a great life, arguably the greatest football coach at any level, and he will definitely be missed.
I'm glad that you hit on his ability to balance being a genuinely nice guy with still being a tough guy. And that's one thing that I gained through watching all these documentaries. And I watched a ton over the last 24 hours, and all the football stuff I already knew. I know the records. I know the games. I'm just an NFL nerd. So I know all that stuff. I know the way the games are played. One of the funny facts that I hit people with from time to time is asking people in that perfect season where the AFC Championship game was played, because most people say, well, they were undefeated. It was played in Miami. No, they had to play in Pittsburgh. That's the craziest thing, the way they formatted the playoffs. It was just kind of some round robin between division winners. So the undefeated team had to go on the road to play the AFC Championship game in Pittsburgh.
And here's your real quick interesting fact before we go. Don Shula actually almost became a priest. Don Shula was a devout Catholic. He attended Mass every single day. He actually almost became a priest. And the one thing that kept him from becoming a priest, he got drafted into the NFL. When he was at John Carroll University in Ohio, he had considered, after football done, joining the priesthood, and he got drafted into the NFL and decided to stick with football.
Jason, one more time. Where was he from?
John Carroll, from the state of Ohio.
What state?
Cleveland.
What state produced the?
I'm sorry. What did he do in Ohio? He came to Florida to win. State of Florida.
Yeah, he was offered a job. Most guys do that. They go where the job offer is.
That's why you're in Connecticut.
Exactly. You nailed it right there. There's an exclamation on the show right there. That's why I'm in Connecticut. There is absolutely no other reason I'm in Connecticut, believe me, than that's where I make my money. Thank you so much. Big Game James, it's always a pleasure when you can make it. You are welcome each and every time, of course. Jason Parker, perfect 51 for 51. Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. Check out him and his podcast. You guys got to get update. We got 52 people on the line, and we'll have a couple of thousand watch this thing. So between James and Logan, I want you guys to let people know where they can find you, in particular with your podcasts.
Go ahead, James.
Big Game James _36 on Twitter, IG. Probably the best to find all the information. Fifth quarter college football. Join our Discord chats. The fifth quarter FSU is the one that I'm mainly over. We have our gold nuggets that we drop periodically when we have good information, recruiting or coaching wise. Fifthquarter.net is the mecca. That's where we're trying to build it up for all things college sports, NFL, and now NBA. Fifthquarter.net. Go check that out. $5. You get all the information you can get.
Well, personally, I'm at Logan's Twitty on Twitter. Noel Game Day is at the Noel Game Day. The podcast is Hear the Spear on all podcast providers. We're trying to build and try to bring on guests more for the podcast. So that's a work in progress. Everybody's busy, I think, landing interviews with everybody because everybody's just stuck at home. So podcasting, creating content. We're on IG, Noel Game Day. That's been doing pretty good lately. But yeah, definitely appreciate Mark inviting us. And next week, I think someone said in here that I make sure I'm not drunk for the call-in show. That's up to me and my decision on what I want to do, James. But we'll see, James Scott.
I want you intoxicated. Okay, I want James with a working computer from the start. I want you intoxicated.
We're gonna have a drink next week.
I'm gonna have a baby's first birthday balloon.
Yeah, we can all have a big toast. There you go. For show 52. Jason, certainly not neglecting you, but you need to start writing for someone again. When's that going to happen?
I'm busy. We're covering the Dolphins now. Obviously, the NFL releases their schedule on Thursday night. When will Jameis make his return to Tampa Bay now that he's a Saint? I'm sorry, what team is he with now, Logan?
The Saints.
Thank you very much. So when is he going to return? When will?
What is that?
What's that?
What does that have to do with me?
I'm just waiting for you to say, Jason, you were right. That's all you have to say.
Oh, yeah, right. I never expected that.
I never expected it either, but I'm just saying that's what I want. That's what I want for our 1 year anniversary. I want you to say, Jason. But we'll the NFL schedule comes out. Who will Logan Steelers play? When will they get beat by the Ravens? You'll find out on Thursday night. So we'll have that covered. You can follow me at JPZ333. I usually just tweet stuff and hit on single women. So that's pretty much it.
Yes, James, I will. Yes, James Scott, I will be having a sip or two. This has been a long year, just to say the least, with Jason.
You're like the younger brother that my parents put up for adoption.
All right, for James, for Jason, for Logan, it's been a good time. Everybody make it back here for show number 52, the big 1 year anniversary next Tuesday night with these guys. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Meanwhile, dive into the videos. I'm covering college football every day. We will have an Ohio State live stream later this week. Miami, sorry, folks. And that we always do as well. I got to cover everyone, Jason. I got to do my best.
You don't have to.
Everyone.
You don't have to. You choose to bring this upon yourself. It's not that we're mad, just disappointed.
And we will see everyone next week.